Tommy DeMano was checking out temperatures. Tom Baldwin was checking out suspension. A brand new combination for him. The zero scrub setup was being tried for the first time by the Tom Baldwin team.
They call it zero scrub. It's the front suspension design that's sweeping asphalt modified stock car racing. The theory behind it is to get the spindle of the front suspension and the ball joint buried deep inside the wheels and deep inside these big, wide, modified racing tires. And the guy that's having a lot of success for it at the Turkey Derby is Tom Baldwin.
Hi, Bones. How are you? I'll explain a little bit about this. The original modified front end was built off a Pinto spindle. So you can imagine the problems we have hanging on to the cars because the Pinto only has a little skinny tire on it. We adapted that Pinto spindle to these big, wide tires. It's like having a big lever hanging off the side of the car. The tire actually turns off the edge on the older design. Now the tire turns off the center of the spindle design, which makes it easy to steer. It uses more of the tire through the corner, and I think it just makes the car basically faster at this point.
Tommy, the modified division has always been a division where things progress very slowly, yet this is quite a jump, isn't it?
Well, it's probably the biggest jump that I've done in a few years, and whoever does it now is on the bandwagon because the thing really works. We came here, we put it on last week, came here yesterday, we were real fast with it. Today it's in the top 10. You know, it's a real good deal.
Tommy, what do you think of the different feel as a driver to drive the zero scrub front end?
Myself, it feels real smooth, just like a road car. I let another tour driver, Jamie Tomeno, drive the car yesterday. He got out of the car, he said he loved it.
Now, you've always been one of those guys who people say can give a race car a real workout. You're probably the ideal guy to test a new product like this, no?
Well, that's why NDS on Long Island chose me to run with this deal. But I still wouldn't have done it unless I personally thought it was a good deal. The three of us sat down and we redesigned the whole setup to my liking. I gave them a few ideas, not a lot, because they're real sharp. We put it on my race car, and it seems to work.
How big a change to an existing modified does it take to adapt this zero scrub front end to it?
The biggest change that I've felt so far, it's just easy to drive. That's the difference. At the end of the day, if we could talk again, we'll take a look at this tire. I think it's going to be easier on the tires. If it's easier on the right front tire, that means you can put more bite in the car. That's what modified racing's all about. Get as much bite in the car as you can, makes you go fast.
How big of an adaptation is it to adapt this setup to an existing modified?
It's basically just like putting a normal clip on an R&E or a Troya car. You just cut it off at the firewall and weld it on and go racing. That's the way we adapted it.
Well, Tommy, good luck, and we hope to see you put the zero scrub in for its first big win here at the Turkey Derby.
Thanks very much.
Well, as you can see, it was a first for Tom Baldwin. But speaking of first, there was another first that was occurring at the Turkey Derby. Kyle Petty, who has never driven a modified before, never even seen Wall Stadium, was now finding himself sitting behind the wheel of Tom Dancer's car, attempting to not only compete, but to qualify for the very first time. In the third qualifying event, to the second row on the inside was Kyle Petty. Outside of him was Pancos as the field would go to green. It was Tim Aery who was trying to take command of things at the front of the field as Eddie Bond would try to run in second. Petty was holding on to that final qualifying spot as George Ross was putting the pressure on with car 24. Pancos was running in the third spot, and Petty was holding on to the final qualifying position. Smoke would erupt to the racetrack when suddenly Bob McCurdy would go spinning to the center of the infield. But back at the front of the field, position number 4 was the hot spot on the racetrack. And Kyle Petty was holding on for his dear life as George Ross was knocking on heaven's door for the final qualifying position. Final circuit of competition, Tim Ayer would hold on to take down the victory. In for second, Eddie Bond. In the third spot was Pancos, and the fourth and final qualifying position would go down to Kyle Petty. Not bad for a Southern driver who's never driven a modified before.
Did you have fun?
Oh, yeah.
Kyle Petty, because of the lateness of the year and the traditionally large fields, and even because of the weather, the Wall Stadium Turkey Derby has always been one of the toughest modified races of the year, but you don't seem to have had much trouble.
Well, I don't know. This is the first time I've ever driven a modified, and a friend of mine, Greg Tomeno, who works for Pontiac Motor Division, he wanted me to come up here and run a modified race, so I said, okay, which one you want to run? He said the Turkey Derby. Little did I know that it was one of the biggest races of the year up here, and it was going to be one of the hardest ones to make, but we've run pretty good so far.
Now, you must get to see these cars a little bit when they visit Martinsville and some of the other racetracks where you fellas run the Winston Cup cars. Have you ever had any thoughts of jumping in one before?
No, really never had an opportunity. Like I say, until I talked to Greg and got to know him more. And, you know, I've run Busch cars and Winston Cup cars pretty much all my career, but never really run much open wheel. I've run a bunch of dirt modified and stuff up in the Northeast here, but this is the first asphalt modified I've ever run.
Is it a mental thing for a driver to try to talk himself away from rubbing wheels with another guy? You guys can do it a little bit with the fenders, but not with one of these.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Even on that's the first race I've run, the heat race out there just then. And, you know, there were a couple of positions where if I'd have been in a car that had some fenders on it, I'd just dove on off down in there and got into somebody. But with these, you got to rethink it a little bit. And it's taken me a little while. These guys, it's second nature to them to back off a little bit and stay off of each other. But to me, I got to think about it, and I think that's hurting me a little bit.
I know your dad, Richard, ran one of these one time, I think he said, and he crashed that. You hope, obviously, not to repeat what he did with one of these.
No, definitely not. We come up here, I'm driving this boy's car, and, you know, I don't want to tear it up. So hopefully it'll be back in one piece for him so he can start next year with it.
What do you think of the northern weather?
I don't like it right now, but like we were talking before, I've been pretty much all over the country in the last couple of weeks, and I think it's pretty cold everywhere right now.
Well, have a good run, Kyle.
Thank you, sir.
Kyle Petty was already qualified for the event, but for Tony Cisco, the local favorite and track champion, it was a whole different story. He was in the first qualifying round, and a suspension problem would take him out of the competition, something that seldom happens to Tony Cisco. And it just goes to show you that even a champion on home turf can have a tough day.
Tony Cisco, a hell of a break.
Typical Turkey Derby. Just one year after another, this just isn't our race.
We talked before about the jinx that you've had here. It's unbelievable how year after year you're the guy to beat at Wall Stadium, and yet the Turkey Derby has never belonged to you.
I know, it's just, I don't know, it baffles me, you know, but I can't complain. We've had a great year, and the good Lord's blessed me with a lot of great victories and championships, and, you know, so I can't let one race really get me down. It does get you down, I'm not going to lie to you, but it hurts, but you got to look back over your shoulder and realize, you know, the good Lord's been good to us.
Tell us about your troubles today.
Started out in the heat race. I didn't qualify well. We didn't know at the time, but we had a torque arm that apparently was cracked, and torque arm broke leading the heat race. Come in, and that, a result of the torque arm breaking, broke the transmission. So my guys did a super job. They changed torque arm, changed transmission inside of like 35 minutes. Got us back out in the heat race and went down on the outside of an out-of-towner, and I had him real tight, and he just clipped my wheel, just a little routine brush, and it broke the rack.
Any shots now of getting into the race as a provisional starter or anything like that?
No, they don't have any provisional starter or anything like that, so I guess it's just another Team 14 Turkey Derby.
3 consecutive titles in a row are the story for Tony Cisco. The experts might say that he literally owns the real estate. But on this weekend, owning the real estate just wasn't good enough for the talents of Tony Cisco.